Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and tonight we are talking to Jim Johnson, the project manager for Star Trek Adventures over at Modiphius Entertainment. First of all, I want to say thank you for joining us, Jim. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Happy to be here, Juice. Thanks so much for the invitation.
So, we had been talking for maybe 2 months now.
Welcome to Master the
Twitter,
Game.
I believe.
And tonight we are talking to Jim Johnson.
Oh, there we go. We were talking about having you on to talk about this product line. Now, before we get into talking about the actual game, I love to ask people how they got into the gaming industry, how they got their job with the company they are in. So if we could start there, maybe you could introduce yourself and your journey into your current position.
Sure thing. Happy to. So let's see, RPG industry start. This would have been way back in the 2001, 2002 timeframe, somewhere in there. Decipher Incorporated had the license to the Lord of the Rings RPG based off the movies that were just coming out at the time. And they also had the license to Star Trek, interestingly enough, back in the day. And I love Tolkien. That's probably my second favorite franchise IP that's out there.
Yep.
And at the time I was, young and hungry and wanted to get into writing freelance. And so I applied to Decipher to be a freelance playtest coordinator for the game, and also a freelance writer if they had any opportunities, and just started doing a good job as a volunteer playtest coordinator, and started doing some fan-made stuff on the side, and got the attention of the line developer at the time, who was Jeff Tidball, and he gave me some opportunities and got me started into the RPG industry. And as it worked out, going into the next part of the question, another one of the playtest coordinators was Jason Durall. And he and I, got a good friendship started. And, after the Lord of the Rings RPG kind of went away, Jason continued to do a lot of stuff in the RPG industry. Like, he's just got a ton of credits. And I kind of dibbled and dabbled here and there because I'm kind of, I don't know a huge number of RPGs. I like what I like. Yeah. And I just kind of really wanted to focus on specific things. So I bounced around a little bit, but was just kind of picky about what I wanted to work on. And, he was the line developer for Conan for a while at Modiphius. And one day he sent me an email and he said, "Hey, Jim, I think you need to send Modiphius your contact information because we just got the rights to a new IP. I can't tell you what it is yet until you're under NDA, but you need to send your information." And then he signed his email with "Live Long and Prosper." So that kind of gave me a clue a little bit to what was coming up. So yeah, then I sent my information to Modiphius. And they brought me aboard, and I did some writing for the core book, and almost immediately got involved in a whole bunch of other stuff, whether it was editing, proofreading, writing, etc. And in 2019, they promoted me to project manager for the whole thing. So it's been a steady progression for Star Trek.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when did Modiphius bring you on for the Star Trek game originally? What year
so they started developing it in 2016. Mm-hmm. I came in around May of 2016, and then we had about a year plus of development time, and then we released it in 2017 at Gen Con to huge fanfare, all that stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it since it came out. I have not had the privilege to play it yet, obviously. We've talked about that. But I have had a little bit, and by a little bit only a couple sessions of 2D20 experience, and so far I really enjoy it. It seems like a very simple system that is adaptable to a lot of different things. With that, how would you describe the core rules of we'll just stick with Star Trek, not necessarily compared to things, but how would you describe the core rules to somebody who's never played it before?
Sure. So at its very essence, it's a 2D20 system, which is Modiphius's house system. It was originally developed way back when by Jay Little, I think, who also developed some other systems for other game lines. And then Nathan Dowdell took it and ran with it. And what Nathan does is he adapts kind of like the baseline 2D20 system to different IPs so that each one feels uniquely different, right? So Star Trek is different than Dune, which is different than Conan, which is different than Infinity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So each one has its own very unique feel. And the basics is, the game master presents you with a task, a potential task, and sets a difficulty number from 0 to 5. And then the player decides what attribute and what discipline they're going to use to attack it. You add those two together, that creates your target number. And then you roll 2d20. You want to roll low in this system. So ones are critical successes. Anything below your target number is a success. and then you figure out whether you were successful or not successful at the task. There are ways to manipulate how many dice you roll. There's ways to manipulate how difficult the task is, whether it's too difficult or you can make it easier. Because this is Star Trek, specifically for Star Trek, there are assist mechanics. So you have teammates who can help you by contributing a die, or the starship can help you, right? Because of course in Star Trek, the starship is almost a character unto itself,
yes.
and has the ability to help you as well. So sometimes even seemingly impossible tasks can be possible just based on like what kind of help you can get. And then there's also a mechanic where you can create advantages, you can create complications. It's a very narrative system, so it's not like other systems where you're just kind of like, it is what it is. You can really, players and game masters really have the ability to kind of play with the meta currencies to manipulate how things actually work in a moment, right? So you can really play with that drama quite a bit.
Yeah, like one of the cool things that that I really like about this is the better you are at a skill, the easier it is to do like a critical. I think, like for instance, if you have 3 ranks in, one of your skills, if you roll a 3 on either D20, that's considered 2 successes, right? Or a critical, correct?
Yeah. As long as you have a focus, right? So like
focus. Sorry, I think of them as skills still.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. So Nathan built it so that there's 6 skills. They're called disciplines, but they're all based on the 6 departments in Star Trek, right? So you got command, con, medical, science, security, and operations, and those are on a rank from 1 to 5. So the more ranks you have, of course, the more proficient you are with that particular discipline. And then one of the ways to differentiate your character from other characters is to pick up to 6 focuses. And those focuses are kind of like your specializations. Like you might be a science officer, but you're really, really good at astrophysics, or you're really, really good at xenobiology or something. And that impacts your critical success range, like what you were saying. Yeah. So it makes it more likely that you're going to score a critical success on a task.
Yeah, and then like the other thing that was kind of cool to me is that pool of what is it? Advantages. It's that pool. What is it called?
Momentum.
Momentum. Up to 6 of those, and that like say you have to have 2 successes, you use some of the momentum to roll like 3 or 4 dice. If you get 3 or 4 success, you actually pocket more momentum because you went over the amount of successes you needed. I actually really like that, like being able to play around with that resource. And you want to spend it because it tops out at, I think, 6.
That's right.
And so you always want to spend a little bit. You never want to be sitting on 6, but you never want 0 either, It's kind of a fun, tactical, yet narrative thing to play around with. And I've really liked that mechanic so far as well.
Cool.
So what is it about the Star Trek core rules that's different than the others, per se?
The other just RPGs.
The other D20s, the 2 D20 systems.
Oh, other 2 D20s. I think if I remember right, and I have to admit up front, I've been in such a Star Trek bubble for like the last 5 years, because like that's literally the only game I've worked on. It's almost the only game I've been reading, really, for the most part. I mean, I try to read the other stuff that's coming out on like Kickstarter, and I try to keep my finger on the pulse of some of the RPG stuff that's going on. But for the most part, it's been like Star Trek all the time.
That makes sense.
My understanding is that Star Trek is kind of like in the middle ground of like medium crunch compared to like John Carter of Mars and Dune, which are more like cinematic rules light. And then games like Conan and Infinity are more crunchy and more rules heavy, right? Yep. So Star Trek is kind of like somewhere in the middle. And Nathan, he built a lot of mechanics into Star Trek that you can use for like ship combat and social conflict and other types of things. And it's really kind of neat because it's almost a toolkit where if you're a GM who like really likes the crunch and your players like the crunch, there's a lot you can dig into and really add to your game. Whereas if you're more of a like theater of the mind, narrativistic kind of GM, you can like just not use the whole tool set and just go off and go crazy with it. And I love that. I mean, I don't know how he managed to make it so flexible that you can do one or the other or a blend or both or whatever. But it's really worked well for my group. And just I've been keeping an eye on social media now for years on this game. And like there's gaming groups out there all over the spectrum. Like some of them really like the very, very crunchy game experience where they've got the miniatures on the maps and they're doing the detailed movement and they're doing all this stuff. And then you've got folks that are on like, Discord, literally playing play by post, right? They're just doing text narrative back and forth. And it's like, oh, they're using the same system, which is crazy, that they're able to use the same system for two very, very different play styles.
Yeah, I tend to go with all sorts of different styles. Like my online games, we do a lot of theater of the mind. I do like maps and minis just for placement. Like it removes any debate if there's a bad, a misunderstanding of placement. Maps get rid of that. And so I really like using maps and minis for that. But other than that, I prefer a more loose narrative game myself. So and so far in our Octung Cthulhu game, also by Modiphius 2D20, we have had no issues with using the mechanics in a narrative way, and I enjoy it. So there are a large variety of Star Trek products on your guys' website. Now, if people are looking to get into Star Trek, obviously people have their different seasons they really like of the TV show, or they like the different movies. Where would you advise people to start? Because it looks like you have different core rule books as well. Where would you advise people to start for different seasons that they enjoy, or even different movies that they enjoy?
So the first thing I'd say is that even though we went with the default year that we wanted to base the game in was 2371, which is like right in the middle of TNG, DS9, and we brought in that kind of LCARS aesthetic. The design elements kind of look like TNG, panels that you would see on the Enterprise or on different Federation consoles, right? So even with that conceit that we kind of went with the 2300 or 2370s aesthetic, the game system itself is good for anything Star Trek, right? You can run Enterprise, Discovery, Picard, like literally any point in the timeline you can run with this rule set. You don't need to wait for an original series set or a Voyager set or a Discovery set to play the game. You can literally take the core rules and just do whatever Star Trek you want.
Right.
My suggestion for new players especially would be to pick up one of the two free quick start PDFs. There's a Starfleet focused version and there's a Klingon focused version. The Klingon one came out earlier this year.
Nice.
And so like if you want to play Starfleet, grab the Starfleet quick start. If you want to try something different and be Klingons, then try the Klingon quick start. They're the same rule system. There's just nuances because Klingons approach things very differently than Starfleet. And those are free. They're PDFs. You just download them. They have pre-generated characters inside them. They have enough of the rules to get you into the game. And both of them have a starter adventure that you can play through. And then from there, I would suggest grabbing the starter set. It's a box set that has literally everything in it that you need. It's got dice. It's got characters. It's got a short campaign that actually teaches you the game as you play, right? It was written intentionally for new people to the game so that a GM and a group of players can literally go page by page, through it and run it. And it's got enough of the rules that you can get by. It doesn't have character generation, obviously, because we want to try to encourage you to at least, buy the core book.
Right. But at the end of the day, it's a business. You got to move the product.
But I will say that, there is a discount code in the starter set. So if you buy the starter set, you get a discount code for a core book if that's, your next step. Like if you see it and you like it and you want to continue on, then do that. As far as core books go, we have two options right now. There's, of course, the Starfleet version that came out in 2017. That's kind of like the baseline core book. And then last year we came out with a Klingon version of the core book, which is again the same rules. Although because we had 4 years of experience with the game, and we've been able to field tons of questions from fans all over that period of time. That Nathan and myself and Sam Webb, we took the opportunity to kind of like do a top-down revision. Well, first we did a top-down revision of the core book to make it Klingon focused, right? And then we added a ton of content to it that is all 100% Klingon focused. And then we took an opportunity to kind of, we didn't really clean up the rule set so much as we reformatted it to make it a little easier to read and a little more comprehensive in terms of like, where things were. And Nathan did, one of the things Nathan wanted to do is he wanted to revise the character advancement system a little bit. So we tweaked it, and then we put that into the Klingon book. It doesn't necessarily replace the one that's in the Starfleet core book. It's just another option. So again, we're just adding more tools to a group's toolkit to determine like what you want to do.
Right.
So the Klingon core book, and then the Starfleet core book, And then this fall, we're going to be coming out with a special tricorder collector's edition set, which is the core rule book in a digest format, but completely revised to a original series aesthetic. And the box, there's pictures online. The box looks like an original series tricorder that has a flip lid, and then all the contents are inside the tricorder box. So if you're a big fan of the original series, or you just want something different, check it out, because it's our love letter to original series fans. Because it's got the crew of the Enterprise, it's got the crew of the Lexington, it's got a 3-part campaign, it's got a ton of dice. We created special 20-sided dice in Kirk's green and gold tunic, right, from the original series. And so we threw those in there. So when that comes out, there'll be 3 different core books that you can pick from, even though the rule set is almost entirely identical.
Right.
It just gives you options, right? You can go Klingon, you can go Starfleet, or you can go original series, and all 3 of those all lead you to the same game experience. So a lot of options, and this is just by virtue of the fact that we're 4.5, 5 years into it now, and we've been able to kind of diversify the line a little bit.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what everyone's going to want anyway, too. As they play, they want things to, mix it up, and they want more options and all of that. So we do have a couple comments I do quickly want to read. So Roll Stats, a big friend of the channel who's on here pretty frequently. If you're brand new to Star Trek, my best advice is don't get attached to any NPCs who have a red shirt on. And that's the truth.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So especially original series red shirts, and then I guess in next gen it's the gold shirts, right? Although I'm not sure that the gold shirts really suffered all that much in next gen compared to the red shirts, but watch out for those NPCs. They tend to be mooks.
It's a good plot device.
Yeah.
Lennon Rich says, now that the game has been out a while, is there a system that Jim would like to overhaul, and how would that look?
Oh man, that's a good question. So I think if there was one system, like over the first couple of years, like the one thing about the game that I think a lot of people complained about, in as much as gamers complain about things, it was the advancement system. It was the character improvement system.
Yeah.
So and I didn't touch on this actually when you mentioned like how is this different from other games. The 2d20 system is not a level-based system. It's not a class-based system. There's no XP to earn. It's a very, very gradual character improvement kind of thing, but it's not like it's not even character improvement necessary. It's like character modification, because what happens is that every one of the key important pieces of the game is that every character has a set of values, right? What is important to this character, right? What does this character hold dear? What like maybe they're Starfleet to the core, or Starfleet is my family, or whatever these special important things are to them. Those values can be tested during games, right? Ideally, the game master is putting you into situations where your personal values are being tested, and as you test those values, you're able to, if you use the value, you can at the end of the episode or the adventure or whatever, you can actually tweak that value. So like maybe you tested it and you failed, then like maybe you cross it out and then you have to rewrite a new value. Like how did that experience change you? And how did that experience change your character? That's cool. And as a part of that, you can earn milestones. And as you use those milestones, you're able to do like a 1-for-1 switch of your points. So like you might improve a little bit in one attribute and go down one in a different attribute, or you can improve one discipline and drop a discipline, swap out your focuses, kind of like tweak your character as you go. So you're not necessarily growing in power level, but you are changing the character by virtue of their experiences. And I think that's really how, by and large, the characters on the TV shows, are reflected, right? Because like if you think about Kirk, and this is an example I tried to make to somebody the other day, is like if you look at Kirk from like the very beginning of the original series, all the way to the point when he died in Star Trek Generations, like
he died.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert. That character, like I could argue that character didn't really change much, power-wise, from the beginning of Star Trek to when he dies, like over 35, 40 years or whatever of that character's existence. Like he didn't level up from like a level 5 captain to a level 20 captain or whatever. Like he's pretty much Kirk. However, his life experiences changed him a lot just by virtue of his values changing, his little attribute tweaks changing, etc. So I think one of the challenges is that a lot of gamers, of course, are coming from D&D Pathfinder, and they're very, very used to that leveling system, and they're really, really frustrated that Star Trek just doesn't provide it.
Yeah.
And my
They're like, wait, I'm
argument-
only a rank 3 in this. How the heck do I get that better?
Yeah.
Or rank 2?
And I think Nathan's argument is like, well, if you look at D&D, by and large, like things get really cool and interesting around level 5, level 6, level 7 when the characters are actually starting to be, they have some powers, they have some abilities, they're kind of movers and shakers.
Yeah.
But in Star Trek, your starting character, you're already hyper competent. You're a bridge officer. You're an ensign with a ton of potential coming out of the academy. You're already a hero.
You already have a ship.
You already have a ship, right? You don't have to build up to something cool. You're already cool right out the box. Like a starting character in Star Trek is numerically identical to Picard, Kirk, Sisko, etc. So like you can literally create a new character and have them be every bit as competent as one of the characters that we know and love from the TV show. And I love that. I just love that. And I guess the hard thing for me is like, I'm in it for the role playing and the character, and the interactions and the experiences. Like I got into a point in my life, I guess, where I don't really care about leveling up or getting loot or gathering. And of course, it's Star Trek, right? So there's no money,
right?
So like that just
currency's out the window.
That kills half the game experience because like, oh well, I can't gather loot, I can't buy stuff, I can't go shopping.
Right.
So like, so what are you in it for, right? And I think for me more than anything else, it's like I'm in it for the experience of telling a really cool Star Trek story at the table with my friends. And but I also admit, as project manager, that's not what everybody wants.
Right.
And so we adjusted. Getting back to Lennon's question, finally, is we did tweak the character advancement system a little bit, so that it's a little clearer what you can actually do to improve. And you can, like for the Klingons, you can earn glory, you can earn
honor or something.
Honor, and you can buy commendations and awards. And you can do a little bit more stuff with it. So that option is there. But I think still at its core, it's never going to be a level system. It's never going to be an XP system. Any kind of character improvements are going to be, like mechanically, are going to be modest. Yeah. And that's just baked right into the system because that's what we see on the TV show. Right. I mean, poor Ensign Kim, like he sure changed as a character, but like he never got promoted. Right. Like Wesley, he got into Starfleet Academy and he became an ensign, and then he went off with the Traveler, and never. I mean, I guess that's a power up, but that's not really a mechanical kind of thing, right? That's just something that happened to him. So I guess
you just have to you have to educate your audience is what it comes down to. It's and just explain to them like that this isn't that kind of system. This is a system about stories and the narrative. And if you want to get caught up in that and tell your character story, you're going to love this game.
Right.
Or your group's story.
Yeah, it's tricky. And I think that's one of the things I've picked up on social media over the last couple of years is there's a lot of new people coming into Star Trek, like the younger generations coming into Star Trek, doesn't have quite the track record experience that some of us have had where we grew up with this, right? We grew up with Next Gen, we grew up with DS9, and they have a different perspective on gaming in general, because of course gaming's changed in 20 years. And I think they have certain expectations, and then they come into it and they're like, well, let's play Star Trek, but they don't really know a lot about Star Trek other than maybe peripherally. And it's just a matter of, I guess, the game master, educating them or having a really effective session 0, right? To say, here's how I want to run Star Trek. Here's what Star Trek is. And then get the group buy-in, right? I mean, that's true for any game, really. You got to get the player buy-in, because if they want to just play, mercenaries, hack and slash mercenaries, then that's fine. That's a great way to play a game. But is Star Trek the best franchise to put it in? Maybe there's a different game out there that would fit that kind of storytelling better. So that's a trick too. Is like not to disparage anybody, but sometimes I read comments and I'm like, did you ever watch Star Trek? Like you want this game to be something very not Star Trek, and that's not bad, of course, but it's just like
you can use it for that. It's just, again, I mean, do you want to when it comes down to it?
Yeah.
I mean, even other 2D20 games from Modiphius do it better if that's what you want. Like if you want really, good combat, I'm sure Conan is a great one for some hack and slash stuff. If you want, blasters and guns like out the wazoo, look at games like Fallout, or some of the other games you guys have over there.
Yeah.
So you could definitely do all of that stuff.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of which game is better tailored for it.
Right.
So with all the products you guys have, is there one that stands out to you in particular that you are most proud of?
Boy, I don't want to compare them to children, right? Because of course you love all your children.
I have a favorite child. I'm just saying, I've got 3 kids. I definitely have a favorite.
I've worked on.
They won't watch this out.
I've worked on every product that we've released, except for maybe one or two of the digital ones. I love them all for different reasons. They all have backstories to them that I really appreciate. If you had asked me a week ago what my favorite one was, it would be the Command Source book, because that was the first book I was really kind of in charge of from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And I do it for all of them, but I packed so much love into that book, as much as I could, to get it where I thought it needed to be. And it served as the template for the sciences book and the operations book, right? So we kind of built that trilogy off the Command Source book. And that was truly, truly a labor of love. But now that the Shackleton Expanse campaign guide just came out on Friday, we just released it on Friday. That is truly the one that is special in my heart, even more so than the Klingon book. Like, I love the Klingon book, and I love that we got to do so much cool stuff in the Klingon book. But the Shackleton Expanse book, we've been working on the Shackleton Expanse and the Living campaign from the very beginning of the development of the game, and we've been holding on to that. We've been working on it or holding on to it for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
And the book itself was in development for almost 2 years, thanks to COVID. And I'm just so thrilled that it is finally off my desk and into people's hands, because I spent most of this year finalizing it and developing it and it going through layout and all that stuff. And I spent so much time staring at the PDF on my screen, doing the tweaks and the revisions, that I was just, I love it, but I was so sick of it, right? Because I just needed to get it out so that somebody else could look at it. And I even mentioned on another chat that for a while there, I was literally the only person on the planet who had seen the entire thing in its entirety, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't share it with anybody, and it drove me crazy. And finally, I sent it all off to the proofreader and said, "Here, please, work your magic on it." And then finally, I had one other person I could share it with to some extent. And then it went on from there. But now I get to share it with the world. So now I can't wait to hear what people do with it. But I think if there was one special book in the entire line right now, it's Shackleton. But honestly, in a year, that'll change, because there's other books coming that I've had just as much fun in. Fortunately, as a project manager, I have a pretty short memory, right? Like I'm hyper focused on the thing that's in front of me.
That's a good thing.
And I'm thinking, I know. And I'm thinking about the things that are ahead. But like once something's released, I I purge my brain and I completely forget about all of it, to the point where like I was doing some reference work the other day and I was flipping through the Command Source book and I was like just staring at a page like, who wrote this? I don't remember any of this. I don't remember developing this. This was like 4 years ago. And 4 years ago is like, an eternity, especially in this world with COVID and everything else that's going on.
Oh, I know. Even like a couple of weeks, it just seems like sometimes it feels like it's so fast, like when it's over. But for some reason, like time just goes so slow this last year and a half.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. That like I don't think people, especially the consumer, realizes how much time and effort goes into each book that's put out.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I've said this for a while now. Modiphius, I think, puts out some of the best physical products in the market. Like the production quality of every single book, like the art, just everything is so gorgeous in every single one of these books. I don't know how you guys do it, but again, like if I look at the Fallout book over here, or the Star Trek book, or the Octone Cthulhu, like the quality is amazing. And it's something that I wish people understood more, because these books are great values. Like when you compare them to a school textbook, like I bet you the same amount of work goes into it, but a school textbook is twice the price as one of these things. So so you've said that that's your current favorite. Now, how many different products are in the pipeline for this line moving forward? I'd
have to look at my list. Like so I've got an active production list.
Yep.
and I've also got a wish list of stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been a Star Trek fan my entire life. I've been a Star Trek gamer now for 30 odd years. Like I know the IP. I know what I want as a gamer. I know what I want on my table for my players to experience. I've got all the Last Unicorn stuff. I've got all the Decipher stuff. Like so I have a pretty good sense, and FASA, of course. So I have a good sense of what has come before.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm really well plugged into the fan base. Like I know what they want because I want what I want, and I'm them, right? So that works out really well. So I've got probably, I don't know, 80 or 90 things on my wish list, of which a smaller section are actually in active development. Nice. So I think I've got maybe, and I've whittled it down a little bit because the dice came out this year and some other stuff is coming out or about to come out. I think I've got maybe 28 or 29 products in active development. And you know, that's kind of a cheat, and somebody will call me out on it, I'm sure. But like we do PDFs releases, right? We do mission briefs and we do standalone adventures, you know, as PDF adventures. They're small, you know, efforts, but like you said, they still take a lot of time, right? Yeah. Even a standalone adventure takes, you know, anywhere from 6 months to a year plus to develop and release, just by virtue of scheduling and layout and approvals and all this stuff. So even though, you know, it's only a 20-page document, or, you know, 20-page PDF, it still takes a huge amount of work and effort to put into it for it to actually get out the door and be released. So yeah, I'd say I've probably got like 28 or 29 things in active development that I'm managing day to day in one order or another. And then, you know, like another 60 or 70 on my wish list that I'm either I want to do and I need to get it greenlit, or I want to do, but I need to figure out the right way to do it. And part of that is because, like you said at the beginning, this is a business, and so I have to do the evaluation. Like I have to do a profit and loss, and I have to do the budget sheets, and I have to do all this stuff that says, you know, hey, I'd really like to do a pack-led source book, but 10 people are going to buy it.
Right.
Right. So like, I can't really do it because like, it's just not it doesn't make sense financially to put the effort into, you know, paying a writer, paying an editor, paying a proofreader, paying the layout people, you know, doing all this stuff. And then artists, layout, the art director, everybody. Yeah. You know, Nathan, if I need some development time on rules, I need his time, right? And his time is valuable too. So it's just like all this stuff that has to go into a product. You know, I will probably have to whittle down that list and say, I would love to do this, but I can't make it happen by itself. Mm-hmm. But maybe there's another product coming like a hardcover where I can like fold it in as a sidebar or an extra chapter or something like that. So that's part of the balancing act, is trying to figure things out. And it just hurts my heart because like a lot of times fans will say, oh, I wish this was in the book, or I wish that was in the book, or they missed this opportunity. And it's like, I know, because like we have all this content that we could throw into it, but it's just a matter of figuring out like, where does it slot in and makes the most sense? Because like I see one of the questions about the Romulans is like we have Romulan product ideas that we want to get to, but we're just trying to figure out like what's the right format. Is it folding it into a source book? Is it doing a dedicated source book? Is it doing a PDF only supplement and kind of test the waters and then release something bigger? There's just a lot of ideas floating around that we're just trying to home in on. I'm pretty confident we'll never do another core rule book based on a species. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Klingons are kind of a special case because if you think of all the species that are in Star Trek, like literally other than humans, the only one that's got its own language that people around the world speak, you know, and has enough depth of culture is the Klingons. And you know, we knew that fans have been waiting for a Klingon core rule book for, I mean, since you know, Decipher, Last Unicorn. They wanted to do a Klingon book, and then Decipher wanted to do one, and it just didn't work out. So we were really glad to get that one out.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, no matter how you look at it, right? Yeah. If you look at any space franchise, whether it's Star Wars or whatever, Klingons might be the most popular race of all of the franchises out there. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and that's just how it is. They're a really cool race or a really cool species, you know?
Right. Right.
So, I mean, yeah, of course there was a lot of demand for that. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. I love it.
Yeah, and it's proven to be really popular. I'm grateful that people love it. I had a lot of fun working on it. And, but when even the Romulans, I'm like, yeah, there's a small cadre of very vocal fans online who are like, yes, I really want the Romulan source book or Romulan core book or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, fine, great. I'd love to find a way to make it work. But to convince Modiphius to open up the purse strings for, several thousand copies,
yeah,
I have to say, yeah, I've got several thousand people who will buy it. I don't think the fan base is there.
Right.
I would love to be proven wrong, but the main hurdle is to like get through it and say, okay, let's make it. So again, that's where we go back to options and like, okay, how do we test the waters and make it work, or do we just fold it into another product, right? I mean, obviously there's some ideas. If I'm not going to give anything away, but obviously if you're looking at the shows that are on,
I can keep a secret if that's what you're wondering about. If you want to tell me right now, I won't tell anybody.
But it's the 7 people watching that I'm not sure about. And then all the people who
hey guys in the chat, don't say a word. Maybe he'll tell us about it.
But I mean, it's Star Trek, right? And I think it's a huge 50 something year franchise. But even then, like we have our parameters, right? Like if you watch all the shows, you have a sense of what content we're pulling from. And I think that we have the Discovery license, that we have the Picard license, and we're developing products. I mean, that's no surprise. We've already told everybody that we're working on Discovery products, we're working on Picard products. So, there's going to be Romulan stuff to come. We just got to figure out what's the best way to present it and in the most cost-effective manner, and also in a manner that we can get it to as many people as possible without anyone feeling. I mean, I'm sure somebody will feel cheated, but we'll do the best we can.
Right. So Roll Stats does play in my Octung Cthulhu game with me as well. So yeah, so he would be on board to play at the 2D20 Star Trek too. So that's awesome. So yeah, Paul Ross says Jay Little and the rest did a good job in designing it. So Paul Ross is also one of our regulars as well. So that's awesome.
And I was just going to say real quick, Jay Little did do the initial design on 2D20. Yeah. I don't think he did the initial design on actual Star Trek itself. Sure. I think he did the initial design on the 2D20 system for Modiphius, and then Nathan Dowdell took it and expanded on it. I don't know exactly the whole backstory history of 2D20. Mm-hmm. So I know Jay Little was involved, and absolutely credit where credit is due for that. But I don't think I'm misspeaking to say that the vast majority of the 2D20 work has been on Nathan's shoulders, and I think he's done an admirable job of it.
So,
but thank you, Jay.
So with your wish list, when you really want to work on, like, I don't know, if you're a huge fan of something, you probably get new ideas all the time. I mean, you said your list is like 90 deep or something. So it sounds like me when I come up with a video idea for YouTube. I'm like, oh, I want to do this. But then like other ideas sometimes jump it because new things come up and I'm like, oh, I want to do this. And you get really excited about it. From the concept phase, your wish list phase, how do you get that to a release? Like, what is your step-by-step? You don't have to tell me everything, but like when you have that idea, how do you pitch it? Who has to green light it? And then, what actually gets the ball rolling after that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the project manager, of course, so I'm ultimately responsible for everything creative with the line. I also happen to be the line editor, right? So like everything goes through me as far as like just getting the product together, getting it out the door. From concept, like I'll put together a concept brief. Me being me and knowing the franchise really well, I tend to go a little crazy and I tend to do a deeper outline. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like, so I'm doing the feasibility, right? Saying, okay, it'll take us 9 months to produce this book, given all the stuff that goes into making a book, from layout to development and art and all that stuff. So I'll work on the outline. So I'll work on the feasibility study, which is to say, I think fans want this kind of a book. Here's my justification for why I think they want it. I'll do a budget line to say, here's what I think it's going to cost to make. Here's what I think we're going to make on actually selling it through all the different venues that we sell stuff, and what I think it'll cost given current printing costs and development time and freelancers and all that stuff, right? So budget line, boring, necessary spreadsheet stuff. It's not fun, but it's necessary. So I do the budget, I do the product line outline, and then that all goes to management and Modiphius, the creative director and the head of product, and they look at it, and then we have back and forth. We have very healthy relationships, so we're super, and they're Star Trek fans too, which doesn't hurt. And so we figure out, okay, is it feasible? And we make some tweaks. They make some revisions. They give me ideas for what their business plan is for like the company, right? Because Modiphius as an entity has its own goals, even though I'm only responsible for Star Trek and I've got my own particular goals, but we have to make sure that they mesh so that we're not, wasting money or time. And then once it's greenlit, then I'm off and running. I marshal the forces. Basically, I find freelancers that I want to work on the book, and then I hand so then the writers go off and start writing their sections based on the outline that I created. But I mean, especially in the last year or so with the last couple of products, I've been really trying to tell my writers, look, give me pushback, right? You guys know Star Trek just as well as I do because that's why I hired you. Yeah. So if you see something in the outline that you think would be better or different, change it. Make some modifications along the way, and then we'll check it out in editing. That's
cool. Giving them a voice, I think that's pretty
absolutely
important, especially for a creative. Creatives like having their opinion heard. So
yeah, and it's Star Trek, right? I mean, we're stronger together as a team. And we see that all the time on the TV show. It's like you never ever dictate to somebody and just tell them, write this. It's like, look, here's where I think the outline should go. And if you have questions, tell me, and we'll work it out and we'll figure it out together. And it's always, the end product is always better when you have collaborative buy-in and you're working collaboratively with people. It's always more effective. But anyway, in the meantime then, so the writers are off writing and they've usually got, a bunch of weeks to get their stuff done. And then while they're doing that, I'm writing art briefs to say, so this chapter, I want this kind of art. And I put together the art brief. That's a, brief description of the art. And then as many screenshots or thumbnails that I can fit in just by surfing the internet and trying to find.
From the TV show or the movies, right?
Either the TV show or the movie. Or if I have a concept for a weird creature, I'll try to find something online that kind of fits. And I'll just throw it in there. And then all that goes over to the art director.
Nice.
And the art director is kind of like me in that where I'm looking for writers and proofreaders and editors, the art director is looking for artists who can, bring the vision to life. And so they pull out their Rolodex of artists and they contact artists and they commission the art, and the artists, start doing sketches. And I look at the sketches, the art director looks at the sketches, and then they do the art. And then finally, once I've got a final manuscript in hand and I've got all the art in hand, all that stuff goes to CBS for review and approval because they are the ultimate arbiters. They own the license. They are the ultimate arbiters of what goes into the book or what doesn't go into the book. And they are super, super, super detail oriented. And I just love them. And we have a great working relationship with them. So we don't get anything past them. And I don't try to sneak anything past them anyway, but because we have so much respect for the property and they know it. And I appreciate that they know how much we love the property.
How much freedom, speaking of them, how much freedom do they give you? Like if you wanted to come up with your own aliens or something, do they let you do that? Or do you just go to them directly and say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Is this okay? I mean, I don't know if you've done that or not, but.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, you may not have had a chance to look at the Shackleton book yet, but so the Shackleton book is probably 90-something% original content. Like original to the franchise as far as like new stuff, right? And CBS has given us a very wide latitude. Like we're able to pull on all the TV series, all the movies except for the JJ verse. We can reference the novels, we can reference the comic books, we can reference pretty much anything we want to, as long as it's respectful to the property and doesn't contradict anything that's happened in alpha or beta canon. To some extent, right? I mean, beta canon especially is really kind of squishy anyway, so we try to be careful about reinventing stuff that like fans have in their head canon.
Yeah, because they'll make it lore and then they'll be mad if it doesn't jive with the other stuff.
Yeah, but I agree. And by and large, like the stuff that we're making up fits into the overall mainline canon plus most of the beta canon.
Yeah.
And I think I'm fortunate that I'm really good friends with Scott Pearson, and Scott Pearson is a Star Trek writer, but he also happens to be the primary copy editor for all of Simon & Schuster's Star Trek novels over the last, 10 years or so. And so he's got this wealth of novel lore in his head. So, I send the stuff to him for canon edit. Like I'm pretty good on canon, but he's even better than me. And that's why I have him on my team, is because I can send him stuff and he'll just go through it and give notes and notes and notes about how, in novel X, we said this, and in novel Y, we said this, and you're kind of contradicting one of them. You want to modify that a little bit. So be like, oh yeah, we should go in and tweak that a little bit. So we've dropped in lots of Easter eggs to comic books and to novels and to other stuff. And sometimes the fans catch it, and sometimes the fans haven't caught it yet, and that's fine. They'll get there.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so CBS has given us a huge amount of latitude, mostly by virtue of the fact that we've built up a great relationship with them, and they know we respect the franchise, and we're not going to put something weird into any of the books.
Right.
And they like the Shackleton book, like I said, with the Living campaign, Dayton Ward and Scott, did the initial kind of like outline idea for the Living campaign. And we said, CBS, we'd like to create this section of the beta quadrant called the Shackleton Expanse. Are you cool with this? And they're like, go crazy, because it's not really canon, right? Until somebody, if somebody on one of the TV shows wants to grab it and drop it into Lower Decks or Prodigy or something, please, make it canon. I'd love to see that happen. But
I was going to say, is that something that you think could happen, that they could take your stuff and eventually work it into the movies or the shows or something in the future?
They could.
That'd be mind-blowing, wouldn't it?
Viacom CBS owns everything, right?
Yeah.
And just by watching the show, like I see that Mike McMahon over at Lower Decks, like he's dropping in references to the animated series and to some other stuff, and even to the novels. And it's entirely, it's not likely. I can't imagine them doing it, but it's entirely conceivable that one of the writing teams for one of these shows could happen to read one of our products and say, "Oh, that sounds really cool. Let's drop that in as a throwaway reference or as a one-liner or something." And if that were to happen, like my head would literally explode, because it would be so cool to hear that actually on screen in an episode. So it's possible. I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's likely, but who knows, right? It would be beyond awesome if it happened, right? It would just drive me. It would be so cool. But I digress. So yeah. Anyway, once all the stuff comes back from CBS approved, then all the art and all the manuscript stuff goes into layout. And that's where the real magic happens, in my opinion, because then I stop staring at a Word document and like little single JPEGs. Then it all starts coming together into the layout, where the graphic designers are putting in the backgrounds and the graphics and the fonts and all the headers and just all the cool stuff that actually turns it into a real full color, product.
Yeah.
And then eventually that gets done after however many passes and revision passes and tweaks. And this is one of the things that I think nobody really appreciates unless you're in the layout graphic design business, is that you have to do an incredible amount of tweaking to text
to make it fit
on a page.
Yep.
Right?
I've heard people tell me about that. And I'm like, really? I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, and the only example I'm going to bore you with is like the mission briefs that we do are 1-page outlines of an episode, right? So it's like 500 words in a nice 2-column format. It's like, here's 1 page, here's a high-level outline of an adventure, Game Master, go crazy, have fun with it. And the challenge for me is like, sometimes it's hard to know how many words will fit on 1 page depending on the way the layout is set up.
Right, and it's the size of the words too. Like a word could be a letter, or it could be like 10 letters.
Yeah, and so when I originally commissioned it, I was like, okay, maybe they're 600 words long, right? So I commissioned a bunch of 600-word mission briefs, and I got the nice 600 words edited and proofread and ready, and sent them off the layout. And it turns out that the layout design that we decided on could only fit like 520 to 540 words. So as an editor, I'm like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to go back and edit every single one of these again to get them down into a place where I can fit them. And that just took time. And sometimes it was hard, because it's like, okay, I need to
cut stuff or reword it.
Yeah, I need to retain the meaning of this paragraph, but I need to cut it by 30 words. So how do I massage it? And I think nobody sees that sausage making in the end product, because of course most people probably don't care, right?
Right.
Like as a gamer, who cares what got cut? But that's just I guess a look behind the scenes, is that there's a huge amount of work in here that very few people appreciate. And it's not that I'm looking for a pat on the back or anything, but especially the graphic designers need a lot of praise, because they put up with a lot of tweaking and changing and revisions and notes, lots of notes.
And like I said, the guys over there at your guys' company do an awesome job. Like I said, it's top notch. It's got to be one of the best in the industry, I think. Yeah,
well, thanks. I'll pass that along. I will say it's gotten better too, right? Like I started with Modiphius 5 years ago, and we were doing really good products. But like I saw the Dune, the collector's edition Dune with the leather cover and the foil and all that stuff, and I'm like, wow, that looks really cool. and they just released a picture of the what was it, the
Octon Cthulhu I saw today.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was so jealous too. I saw that, I was like, why aren't we doing that for Star Trek?
Maybe that's next. Maybe you have 91 things on your wish list.
We got some stuff in the works, but finally, we're at that point. So anyway, so once layout's done, and I'm probably getting boring at this point. Once layout's done,
I love this stuff. I mean, I don't know about my audience, but I love it, and so if I'm learning and I'm entertained, I'm good.
Yeah, once the layout and everything's done, that gets approved by CBS as well, because then they get to see everything in its full glory all together, and they approve it or they have notes as appropriate.
So they have two approval processes then?
Usually, yeah.
Like manuscript and then the final.
Full manuscript, final art, and then the final pre-production file. So they see what it's going to look like once it's in print. And then if it's a digital release, it just goes straight to digital release. Like we don't have to go to a printer for that, obviously, because we've already got the digital files. But if it's a print release, then all the files go to the printer, which is all text-based, and then we wait for them to print it and then ship it, right? And right now, with the global shipping challenges being what it is, it takes a long time to get stuff. Not so much print. I mean, the printing is relatively easy and fast, but it's the shipping that's the challenge right now. It's just finding shipping containers and people to drive the trucks and factory and warehouse and all that stuff.
And that was like, I mean, I don't know about the logistics exactly, but that was because like a freighter got stuck in Panama or something, right? And it set everything back. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was part of it, right? Like, that ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal delayed a lot of things. But I mean, even we do most of our printing, our print book printing in Europe, and that stuff gets on a shipping container, and then from a boat it goes from Europe to the UK, and then from the UK it goes into the UK warehouse, of course, for UK and Europe, and then it gets on another shipping container and gets on the boat to America. And so there's logistics people, and I bless their hearts for working as hard as they do. The shipping container, the logistics people, they have to schedule shipping containers. And they have to schedule truck drivers, lorry drivers. They have to schedule all this stuff, and then they have to track where's that shipping container in the world. Like what boat is it on? Where is it going? What's the estimated time? And so stuff gets to the UK first, and then from the UK it comes to America. So that's just another 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever. I mean, whatever.
You guys over there at Modiphius just started a US, at least the website. There's like a US store now. Like that's fairly new, isn't it?
Yeah, it just went live on Friday, in fact.
So is that also a new warehouse set up in America then too?
Yeah, my understanding is we have a new, or not a new distributor, but another distributor, or something. I'm not sure exactly how it works out. I don't get too involved in that, other than kind of secondhand, just because I know that I'm plugged into the fan base, and the fan base says, "Where's my stuff?" And I say, "Well, it's at the distributor. So tell your friendly local game store to order from the distributor." Like the whole game infrastructure and distribution is really kind of a mystery to me, because there's so many moving parts. It's like there's one main distributor in America that all of our stuff goes to, and then from that main distributor it goes out to smaller distributors like Alliance, I think, and Amazon, and just all these other distributors, and then local game stores order from specific sub-distributors, right? So like they have
their own relationships and stuff.
Yeah. So your game store in like Michigan or whatever, they're probably ordering from one specific distributor, and if that distributor doesn't get information from the main distributor, then it's like the stuff's not in stock. They don't have it yet. It's like, well, and then I can say, well, I know where our stock is. I know it's in the main distributor, so it's just like you got to order it. So anyway, all that being said, Modiphius finally opened up a U.S. store, which means that the shipping costs are much reduced. So instead of paying
$20-some, $30.
Yeah, 20, 30 pounds or whatever to get it from the UK to America, now you're paying local shipping, which is a little less expensive. Even though, I mean, shipping is still expensive now, whatever the case. So,
and you guys don't make small core rule books. Like, they're massive, which is great.
They're pretty big. Yeah, I mean, the Star Trek was 360 some pages, and the Klingon book was 400 pages, and Dune is pretty big. Yeah, so I mean, they're meaty core rule books for sure.
Yeah. But you don't need other books technically to run the game. You can run it out of the core rulebook.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about Star Trek is, like, from the very beginning, we designed the game line to be one core book, and then literally everything else is supplemental, which means literally it's nice to have if you want it, but you don't need it. Like you could just take the core rule book and spend, the rest of your gaming life just using that one core book. Now, I mean, obviously it's a business, like you said at the very top, and we would love it if you bought more stuff, but we're not, I mean, it's all supplemental. We didn't hide critical rules in some random supplement that you have to go buy just to get that one rule set, So yeah, I mean, it's just like, if you want more information, buy this book. If you want more information, buy that book. If you want more species, spread it out a little bit. So we try to give you a lot of options.
So this question has been on my mind for a while. I've been meaning to ask this. So what has been the biggest perk for you working on the Star Trek line? Like, have you been able to do anything that maybe a normal fan would not get to do just because you're associated with this product line?
That's a great question. I think I've got two answers to it.
And it could have been before Modiphius too. I'm just curious.
No, I mean, I've always loved Star Trek, and I was really grateful. I had an opportunity to write some short stories for Simon & Schuster and get into Star Trek that way. And that's how I ended up meeting a lot of the other writers, and just really building that professional community, but also just, like socializing with other Star Trek fans around the world. The most rewarding part of this thing for me is getting to share the love of the franchise with other people in a different way, right? So it's not just, I'm getting to work on a book or something, but because I'm a gamer and I've got so many friends who are gamers and I've met so many gamers through this thing, like we all kind of like collectively know what we want, and we love the game and we love the property. We want more cool stuff for the game. And so like, it's just really cool. And I'm daily, eternally grateful to be in this position, like to be in the right place at the right time to stumble into this work, to be able to give back to the community how much I love this game and how much I love this property, and to see them enjoying it, right? Like I have never ever seen, and like I said, I've been a gamer for 30 odd years, right? And until fairly recently, like we didn't have the internet, right? Like, so if you were playing D&D, you had your local D&D group and that was it, right? You would read Dragon every month, and you had a sense that there were other gaming groups out there, and maybe you'd go to Gen Con or to local conventions, and you had a sense that there was a bigger game community. But until the internet came along, we weren't really connected in that same kind of way. And now with Star Trek Adventures, I think Star Trek Adventures is really kind of the first Star Trek RPG that's really been able to kind of like take advantage of the fact that there's a internet, right? Because I think this Decipher and Last Unicorn Games kind of came out like just as, and this is dating me, of course, which is fine, but like the internet wasn't what it wasn't what it is now, right? And so like we have this global community of Star Trek Adventures players. So like, we write these adventures, and like there's a game group in Poland playing our adventures, and they put it up on Twitch, or they put it up on YouTube, or they put it up on whatever, social media is appropriate. And like, I don't understand the language, but I can watch them playing, and I can see the stuff on the table, and they're having a great time. And it's amazing to see that happen. I mean, as a creator, it's so rewarding. And, I'm not getting paid to have them do that or anything. It's just like, wow, these people are in Africa and Japan and China and gosh, I mean, just all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, etc. And they're just putting this stuff up on the line for people to enjoy. And that's the most rewarding part for me, is just like seeing what they're doing with the game. And that's why I'm so excited to finally get some of these products out the door, because it's like, oh, I think they're going to love this.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with it? Right. And that's like for the Shackleton book that just came out, like there's 320 pages of stuff in there. Right. And it's like, we just dropped it on your head. And I'm like,
and it's all new. Like 90% of it is new to these super fans.
Exactly, yes. And I'm giddy. I have to admit, I should probably be more restrained. Right. But I'm giddy.
No,
like
you're fine.
Because I'm like, oh, we made all this cool stuff for you. What are you going to do with it? And it's like almost like a reverse kid at Christmas, because I'm like, I'm giving you the present. I want to see what you do with it. Yeah. And because like there's so much cool stuff in there. And I just know that like this is a little secret. I have to admit that like because of social media, right? People announce on Twitter or whatever that they're going to do a live stream of their game session or whatever, right? So like, anybody can just go and listen in. And so while I'm working late at night, right, if someone happens to have a Twitch scheduled for the right period of time, I'll just drop in for an hour because like, as long as I don't post on the chat window, like they don't know my handle, they don't know my name. I'm just some random gamer.
And most probably don't, even if you do comment, they're probably
exactly.
like, oh yeah, it's just some dude, new guy. Hey,
yeah, exactly.
Thanks for following.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll follow them and I'll just sit there and I'll watch it and I'll just listen to them playing the game, doing their thing with their characters in whatever situation they're in. And I'm every single time I do that, no lie, every time I'm like, I'm welling up inside because it's like they are playing a game that my team and I have put our heart and soul into. And Modiphius, we've got, obviously Modiphius is fully supportive of this, and CBS and everybody else. And it's like, they're doing cool stuff with the game that we made for them. And it's just so rewarding to see that. I could go on about this, but I'll stop so we can ask some other questions. But that, I don't know if this answers your question, by the way, but that is really the most rewarding thing for me, is like being able to create a cool thing and then putting it into people's hands and then just sitting back and just like being amazed at what people come up with. That's awesome. And then just doing it all over again, release after release, right? Yeah. And that's the joy.
Do you get access to anything that is official? That's like typically when like you're working with an IP, my understanding is you get like a world book or you get like a behind the scenes like guide to all the things that maybe even fans don't actually get to see. But sometimes you get special access to art archives or, other things. Do you get access to all that? And like, how does that, impact you?
So, it's not that I have any secrets. I'm just trying to figure out how best to phrase it.
Sure. It's like a candy store, right?
It is. It really is, because so Viacom CBS, of course, has hundreds of licensees that make all kinds of stuff, right? From models to T-shirts to comic books to stickers to miniatures to action figures, whatever, right? So they have a portal, they have an online portal, of course, that all the licensees can sign into to submit our stuff for their approval, right? So there's just a development queue that all of our stuff goes into, right?
Oh, okay.
But as part of that portal, they have an art archive of all their properties, right? So Viacom CBS is a gigantic media conglomerate, right? And they've got, hundreds of TV shows, hundreds of movies, all kinds of stuff. And now, of course, we don't have access to all of it because, our license doesn't cover everything. It's just Star Trek. Right. But even
Do you have to buy the different licenses? Like, so Star Trek is broken up into multiple licenses then?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Star Trek is grouped up in
like generations or whatever.
And we're responsible for different contractual things about the different components. But anyway, so as you get different things added to your license, you get access to the art archive. So there's a giant Star Trek art archive on the CBS portal, and there's just all kinds of stuff in there from everything that you can imagine that Star Trek has produced. Like you just look at all the different publications that are out there, and for the most part, like all that stuff is accessible to us if we want to use it. So if you've looked at some of our products, you'll see that some of the artwork in our products you would have actually seen in other products, right? So like especially the Ships of the Line calendar, all that artwork is owned by CBS, and all that stuff is in the archive. And so like if I need a ship graphic and we don't have the budget for one, or if I just need to drop something in quickly,
you can use that.
I'll go into the archive and say, oh, there's one, ding.
Oh, nice.
And then I just download the high quality, Photoshop or JPEG or whatever, and send it over to the layout people. So, and frankly, that's a huge, it's a time saver, but it's also, it helps money. It helps save on money too, because like there's a lot of great ship art out there.
Yeah.
And, ship art isn't cheap because most of it's CGI. I mean, some of it is illustrated, but a lot of it is CGI constructions. And, the people that create that stuff deserve to be paid very well for what they do.
Yeah.
And we can only pay so much, right? Because RPGs have a very different budget structure than a lot of other things. But anyway, that's a digression. Basically, yeah, we do have access to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
One thing that we don't have access to, though, and I'm kind of a mixed blessing about this, is like, I know a couple people who work for CBS, and they have signed NDAs to the nth degree, right? So they get they have access to the scripts, like so they get sent
the
Prodigy
next movie
script.
or the next show, or
right? They get Prodigy scripts, they get Discovery script, they get all the stuff advanced in ahead of time to use for their references. But we're not there yet, right? So we don't have that kind of access, and I'm not sure.
You're working from the history of it mostly.
Yeah, yeah. Like if we got the Prodigy license at some point, and they were to send me all the scripts before the show even came out, I would be really conflicted because it's like on the one hand I want to know what happens, but on the other hand I want to be surprised when the show actually comes out on the air, right? Yes. So it's like that kind of like do I want to know it all or do I want to wait? And it's like I'm not sure what I'd
avoid the spoilers, man.
That I'd lean on, man. Yeah, spoilers are tough, but for now we're kind of in a reactive mode. We're like we have to kind of wait to see what happens on screen before we can start writing about it, which is perfectly fine.
That's awesome. So Lay Top Hat, who is a TikToker, says everyone who works on a book, game, etc., all deserve a pat on the back for their hard work. I agree.
Amen.
Roll Stats says second rule of Star Trek RPG: never, and I do mean ever, enter the holodeck. And Lay Top Hat jumps into it. And then Gloria says the ISS astronauts are able miraculously to wear cloth fiber suits with creases in this spatial vacuum that boils water instantaneously. This spatial vacuum that is negative 454.81 degrees Fahrenheit. Awesome. I don't think that was a question. I don't know what that was in reference to. But yeah, that works. Awesome. Well, we have been going for about an hour. Sell the audience on Star Trek. Why should they buy Star Trek Adventures if they haven't already?
If you haven't, if you want, first of all, if you're a Star Trek fan, this is the game for you, right? Like if you want a Star Trek episode experience at your game table, whether it's virtual or in person, and you want to be able to tell your own stories and your own seasons and your own campaigns and have it feel like Star Trek, this is the game to do it. It can be super crunchy in terms of rules if you want it to be. It can be super rules light too. So like the rules will not get in your way if you just want to tell a great story with your friends back and forth, doing the heavy duty role playing and just getting into it. So
I agree.
I think that is it more than anything else. Is like if you want Star Trek at your game table, this is the way to do it. And in a game system that will not get in your way, right? If you just do at least start with the basic task resolution and then just add rules on from there as you're comfortable with it. Don't worry about canon. Don't worry about getting it wrong, right? Because there's only one way to do Star Trek, and that's the way you want to do it. And just like have that session 0 with your group and get everybody's buy-in to how you want to run Star Trek the way you want to run it, and what is canon for your group, and then just have fun.
I couldn't have said it better.
and
that's for all games. Like that is for all games right there.
Seriously, yeah. And I will say for Star Trek Adventures especially, and this isn't for Modiphius, this is just the fan base is so supportive, right? Like there are so many great fan sites out there that you can use to learn the game, to learn the rules, to get additional fan supplements and support, right? Like, I mean, there's Facebook, there's Reddit, there's Discord, there's a Continuing Mission, which is a great fan site. There's the official forums. There's just a ton of resources out there. One thing that there isn't very good yet is like a lot of people are like, I want to play a game. Someone who's running the game, who's playing the game. Like whoever can figure out how to get GMs and players together is going to make a mint, because I just don't think there's a good, like, not just for Star Trek, but just like gaming in general. Whoever figures out that
it's
magic
spread out. Yeah, like you can do it through like Roll20's website.
Right.
That's hit or miss from what I've heard. I do have here you go, guys. If you like, we've got 2 people right here that are regulars on my channel. I am familiar with 2D20. I know there's other people that I'm friends with that are familiar. If you are interested in a 2D20 game or Star Trek Adventures, go to my Discord. You can look there. Maybe you can find some people. There's always a couple people looking for a game of variety of games. But yeah, you guys could probably pool some resources. If you reach out to me, I'll, signal blast it on Twitter, wherever. If you're looking for something, a group, let me know. And I will also try to help, or at least steer you as close as I can to where you need to be.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's, like you're saying, like it's right now, it's so spread out for trying to find players. Where do you go to find players for different games? And do you go to the message forum for Modiphius? Do you go to Roll20 and look on theirs, or, where do you go? It's all over. So
Right.
yeah, if somebody has a great idea to consolidate that, maybe one website that's able to pull from everywhere, there you go. I'm not a software guy, but
yeah. But yeah. So like, if Star Trek is your jam and you're a gamer, like, or a tabletop RPG gamer, this is it. This is the one for you, because there is so much love built into this. So hopefully folks see that. I see it from my writers and my artists, and hopefully folks are seeing it from us, and enjoy it, try it out. Again, like I said, you can get the free quick starts. Don't buy anything if you don't want to. I'm not trying to sell you on the game necessarily, but check out the free quick starts, and then go from there.
And I do want to quickly say too, if you are not familiar with Star Trek, there's probably enough in here to get you started. Maybe you're new to Star Trek and you're overwhelmed by the lore. Because I know for me, for a long time, I have always struggled playing IPs over the years because I was worried I wasn't going to do the lore justice. The books have enough in it, I believe, that you could jump in and tell specific stories about the stuff you do know. And in the system, like he was saying, if you just know the core resolution, you can jump in, play, not get too bogged down with rules, and not have to worry too much about the lore either. So it's a good game for that. And if you don't want to follow the lore and you just want to play a space game, you can do that with these rules to great effect as well. So there you go. All right, Jim. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. I don't believe there are any other questions in the chat. Huge thanks, Roll Stats, for joining us also, and everybody else in the chat for participating. We appreciate it. Once again, Jim, thank you for your time, and good luck with everything you guys have going on, and hopefully we can have you on again sometime down the road.
Yeah, Juice, thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate you chatting with me and going over for a little while here, listening to me ramble about the game. For fans, I'm easy to reach. I'm on all the social stuff for the game, so you're not gonna have any trouble finding me. Twitter, the official forums, Facebook, Discord, etc., Reddit, etc. So anytime you have a question, reach out to me. If you want to write for the game, write to me. I don't care whether you're an industry professional or a newbie. I am very dedicated to bringing new writers into the fold. IDIC, everybody's good. So I will help you along if you're interested. Just send me an email or hit me up on one of the social medias. I would love to hear your stuff and get you into as a published credit and all that great stuff. Get paid and add your voice. So in the meantime, I'll keep working away on the game and hope you love it. And again, Juice, thank you so much for the opportunity and for all the support you do for not just Modiphius, but for just gaming as a whole. Really appreciate you having me on tonight.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
This was Master of the Game. I am Juice. Game on.